Hey everybody, this is Nathan. I wanted to provide a quick tutorial on some Illustrator functions. You guys are doing a good job this week. There's been a few questions about a few different things, fill colors and stroke weights and things like that. So I wanted to take just a couple minutes and show you, or maybe a better word is to reinforce some of the things we're working on this week. So I have the file open for assignment 2, and I want to give you guys some pointers and some tips. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We've got our card, and this is one of the students' work. I think it's Melissa's. Anyway, she's followed the instructions to the letter, and everything looks pretty good. But one of the problems I have with this assignment is margins, and you can see here at the base of your file, the base of this card, things get very tight. The margin between bits and bytes and the line is really tight. It makes things hard to breathe or hard to read because there's no breathing room. You can also see that this phone number is sitting right on top of the content. So when you're working in Illustrator or any software for that matter, you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your margins and the balance of your composition. And so what I would do is I would move this number up, and I would hold down Shift while clicking on objects I want to select, so I can select more than one object at a time. I have my direct select tool selected. I'm going to click on bits, the URL, and click on the address, and click on the phone number while holding down Shift, and all three of those files are now, all three of those objects are now selected together. And I can move those up, and I've got an extra space there with the dash. Whoops. Well, I don't have an extra space, but you can see the odd gap between the 7 and the dash on this phone number. Let me zoom in for you. One way to fix that is if you put your cursor between the objects where they're the odd gap, you can hold down the Option key and then hit one of your arrow keys, and you can adjust the kerning of the space manually. And you get to typography classes in the near future, but that's just a quick tip on how to adjust kerning, which is the space between your letters, manually. It's Option, and then hold down Option while hitting the arrows, and you can adjust that manually. So that's a quick tip on that. For those of you who had a hard time with the fill colors, by now you've probably figured that out, but you know in your palette you have your fill color, and then you have your stroke color. When you have your swatches open, let me see, Windows swatches. Right now my swatches are open, but I don't have any colors showing, so I'm going to select my options menu on the side of my swatch palette, and I'm going to go down to Open Swatch Library, and I'm going to go to Default Swatches and Basic RGB, and now I have swatch options, and I can change then the color of this font or any object that I'm working with. So I've got blue, purple. I like purple because it matches the gray, and I've changed the color. Let's say I want to give this a very small drop shadow, but I don't want to go to effects. I just want to do it manually. I'm going to copy and paste this number, Apple C, Apple V. That put a copy and paste. Another way to do that is if you do Apple C or Control C on your PC, and then you hit Apple F, it pastes the object directly on the same spot of where you copied it. So that's a really nice feature. So let's go ahead and give this a stroke color, and we can see that it's living there next on top of the original. So if I go to Object at the top of my palette, and I say Arrange, Send to Back, now that sits behind the original purple letter, and I'm going to choose gray as my color, and I'm going to make sure both my fill color, and if I hit X on my when I have my tool selected, I hit X, I can toggle between the fill and the stroke. So if I hit X, you can see how I'm toggling between the stroke color and the fill color. So X is a shortcut for toggling. So I want to make sure the fill and the stroke have the same color. It's selected because I can see that it's selected. I'm going to drop it down just a touch. And I'm not sure you guys can see that very well. Let me zoom in. And you can see that there's a subtle drop shadow made by me on that phone number. So toggling between stroke and fill is X, and then fill color, obviously you just have to pick whatever you want and it will change colors. Make sure that you have an object selected before, or nothing will change, right? You have to make sure everything's selected. So let's see what else I can show you to help out. So I would probably, if this was my design, I would probably bump that up. I would make the title larger. I'm holding down Shift while scaling in my bounding box. My bounding box is there. I'm going to hit Control C, Control F, and duplicate that bits and services. I'm going to hit, I'm going to go up to my top menu, Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and then I'm going to do Bring Forward, Arrange, Bring Forward once, so that that font, that word, is there. Let's see if we can get this to pop as well. Okay, it's not, I'm not seeing it because this green bar is still showing, so I'm going to select the green bar, Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and now I can see all of my fonts. And notice that when I stroked this font, that I've got these weird ticks. I've got this weird thing going on here. And what's happening is it's stroking the letters, and when it does that, the way the letters are made, it's giving you those sharp edges. So let's select the original type, which is the white type, and we're going to go up to Object, and we're going to hit Lock. Let me see if I can show you that. Object, Lock. Okay, I'm going to lock that selection. So now when I choose this, I'm only selecting the red type. And I'm going to go to Stroke, and I'm going to hit, right now I have a 7-point stroke, 6-point stroke, 5-point stroke, 7. And next to the stroke, you see you have these options for rounded caps versus hard edge caps, butt caps versus round cap versus projecting cap. Let's choose rounded and watch what happens. Watch what happens to my edges. Let me zoom in so you guys can see that up close. Okay, I'm going to hit the rounded cap. And now it went away. If I go back to hard object or butting cap, it gets me sharp. But if I round it out, then now I've got a smoother stroke around my type. And it's going to work a lot better. I don't particularly like that color. Let's try maybe a blue, darker blue, or maybe even introduce the gray. There's the gray. A fun thing that you guys may or may not get to in this class, but it's kind of a neat tool and a neat option, is transparency. And what transparency does is it allows you to manipulate how the colors sit on top of each other. So right now that's a normal gray. If you make it multiply, which is basically see-through, that blending option gives you kind of a nice, it's not really a shadow, it's a darker green, but the original color is gray. So that was under transparency, and that's up here. Another thing you can do is manipulate just how see-through it is. It gives you kind of the gloss and things like that, but I prefer multiply, and we can scale it down a little bit and go from there. And then I'll take this and I'll move it up. Whoops, that's grouped. I want to select the gray of your robot, and I want to add a gradient. I'll go to my gradient tool, which is this object right here. It looks like a gradient bar, and we can just see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and select it, and where's my gradient palette? Let's go gradient, and now we just click on the gradient. Oh, look at that. Alright, got a gradient in there, but I don't particularly care the way that looks, so I'm going to manipulate it. I'm going to drag a blue into the gradient bar. Whoops. Let me move that up so you guys can see that a little better. And now I can start manipulating how the gradient works inside of his body. And you know, you can have lots of fun with gradients. You want to be careful with how you use gradients. They're pretty cliche. A lot of people who aren't designers love using gradients because they're so much fun and etc. But really, as designers, we need to be careful how we use them. They have a place, but they need to be done carefully. You can also see that you can toggle between radial and linear. Okay, so those are just some bells and whistles. I'm just trying to. Those of you who are excelling at this may enjoy these. May enjoy some of this extra. I think what I would call what I just showed you guys, some extra things. How to do some drop shadows. How to toggle between fills and strokes. How to use the gradient tool and the transparency tools. One other quick tutorial, quick example is this burst here, this $10 off. If there's another way to do that, if you make an object, and let's just make it black so you can see what I do here. What these bursts are called in the industry, they're called violators, because they violate space and they violate design to really bring something out and call to action. If you go up to the top of your menu, and you click on Effect, you'll see an option that says Distort and Transform. And if you zoom in, or not zoom in, if you move down to Zigzag, select Zigzag, this window opens up, and you have a preview option. So just click on the preview button, and you can see that all of a sudden my circle turned into a star, right? And now you can manipulate how many ridges on your star versus simple star. And you can also do size versus small. And then you also have smooth corners versus hard corners. So that looks like a pretty good violator. We'll say OK. And now I've got this object, and you can see the original circle is the form. It hasn't been converted into a star. It still thinks it's a circle with the zigzag effect on it. So if I go up to Object Menu, and I hit Expand Appearance, watch what happens to the circle. It now becomes a star. We just converted it into the violator star. And I can take that and I can, maybe stretch it a little bit, which doesn't look very good, and then move it down. If it was me, I probably wouldn't stretch it. I would keep it as is. I would, use my pointer. I have my star selected. I'm going to click with my color eyedropper tool, the color inside the green, and I just made it the same color, so the eyedropper will let you echo the same colors. And we can move this copy. It's all grouped together. Since that's grouped together, I'll probably just retype it, but I can place that down in there. And let me zoom back out. You guys can see this a little better. Move that down, and now you've got your violator tool. If you want to rotate that, just hit the R button, and that's rotate shortcut. You can use your pen tool, and you can make a curve. So it's a shooting star. Let's make it a different color, green. Object, arrange, send to back. There we go. All right, you guys have seen enough for this short 10-minute tutorial. My agenda here is just to show a few things as we talk through these tools. You guys can see me working with this. My hope is it helps reinforce the video of the class. I'll try to do these every week, hopefully a couple of them a week. And the next time I do this, I'll try to have it a little shorter and a little clearer. But give me some feedback. Let me know if this worked or if this sucked. And I'll try to take your feedback, and we'll improve these as we move through the class. Don't let the software frustrate you guys. You need to keep focused. You need to keep working hard. This stuff takes time to learn. I've been working with Illustrator for almost 12 years, and I still don't know everything, and I still get frustrated with the software. So don't stress. Have fun with this. If you have any problems, let me know. Watch the details, and you guys have a great week. All right, bye.